Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. The Phillies put up some historic numbers against the Seattle Mariners in their sweep. We'll break down just how special that series was in today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You may know me from some of my other work in the sports talk space. I've been on air over at 97.5 The Fanatic, doing sports talk radio here in Philadelphia. I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for 4 seasons. This is also my 4th year as the host of Locked On Phillies. Please make sure that if you're listening to us in podcast form, and we are available on Locked On Phillies wherever you get your podcasts, that you're rating and reviewing. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hey, YouTube, how's it going? You can like and subscribe the videos. And if you hit that subscribe button, that'll get you notifications when new episodes are posted. It's free and easy to subscribe. And I appreciate everyone who's done that, everyone who's going to do that. It helps you. It helps me. It helps all of us here on Locked On Phillies. So thank you so much. Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. You can enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. Visit 5HEWin.com for full rules and entry. That's 5FIVEHE win.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. A great deal there from 5 Hour Energy. And listen, golf tournaments can be exciting for sure. But I don't know that any sporting series could be as exciting as what the Phillies just played against the Seattle Mariners. What a darn performance by them. 11 runs in the series finale yesterday. Some historic numbers overall. We're going to talk about it, and this is a time to celebrate because, man, you may never see another series like that. You also saw the return of Jose Alvarado yesterday, and a very interesting reaction from the fan base. We're going to talk about that. And it's an off day. First one in 2 weeks. So it's about time we got another check-in on the standings. Where are the Phils in the National League, in the National League East, in baseball in general? We'll go through all of that later on in the episode. But let's go right to, of course, the big news of the day, which is the Phillies sweep the Mariners. They took care of business at home against Seattle. This is a team that came in here with the major league leader in home runs, with playoff aspirations. They're trying to hunt down the Astros in the AL West. And my goodness, the Phillies treated them like they were the Colorado Rockies at Citizens Bank Park. Some of the numbers that the Phillies put up in this series were outstanding. Yesterday, well, let's start by talking about Jesus Luzardo, because he went out and he struck out 6 guys in the first 2 innings. All of the first 6 outs of the game came via the strikeout for the Philadelphia Phillies. It was impressive. And he didn't stop there. He doubled that number by the time he was done. 12 Ks for Luzardo. He looked amazing. And while striking out that many guys normally means your pitch count is too high to go way too deep into the game, he still was pretty darn efficient with those strikeouts in tow. I mean, he took care of business in just about every way yesterday on the mound, and that was really impressive to see. Now, we know he has great strikeout stuff. We talked about it on yesterday's episode. By the way, if you need a reason to hit that subscribe button for Locked On Phillies, I believe yesterday I said Luzardo more than 7, more than 8. Look at 9 strikeouts, and now he had 12, but still, hey, it's bold to say, hey, look at 9 or more strikeouts, or 9 strikeouts as the number for a guy, and turns out that was correct. And I also said my home run guy, Max Kepler, who went yard in the game. So I'm seeing the matrix right now. I've predicted home run hitters in the past 2 games for the Phillies. So this is it. I got to give myself a little pat on the back for that one. And, hey, maybe start making some money on this bet with our friends over at FanDuel on anytime home run hitter, and you could try and cash in on my hot stretch right now with that. But Luzardo proved me right, proved a lot of people potentially wrong, myself included. And you're like, Connor, how could he have proved you right and wrong? Well, he's a coin flip, right? I've been saying that about him. I called him the mystery box, like the Mario Kart mystery box on yesterday's episode. You don't know what you're going to get from him start to start, but he gave you some great work yesterday. And he had 12. Christopher Sanchez, double-digit strikeouts. Ranger Suarez, double-digit strikeouts. And that's where the numbers start to get historic. The Phillies have never, that anyone can find in any type of recorded history of the franchise, had 3 starters go out and have double-digit strikeout starts in the same 3-game series. It's never happened, right? You are seeing history, or you did see history. So the starting pitching was outstanding. And you can't help but think that that comes from, at least partially, a place of Wheeler could be done for the year. We know he's got a significant issue that he's working with the blood clot. I'm sure there was talk in the clubhouse of like, all right, we got to step up, boys. And I'm sure that talk was heavy in the Phillies rotation. And the first games at home, since that Wheeler news truly came out, you got gem after gem after gem. Now, it's tough to see that. Now, I'm not just talking about the performance, the focus, the little adrenaline that you get from saying, okay, this is my first chance to show we can make up for not having Zach Wheeler. It's hard to imagine that that's going to continue through the remainder of the season, right? It's just not realistic. Now, was this an example of why the Phillies still have a chance? For sure. This series was a shining example of why the Phillies are not a 0% chance to win the World Series team. Now, would I tell you it's probable? No. Would I tell you my percentage is probably around the, 10% right now? Absolutely. There's a lot that they're going to have to overcome or figure out in order to win consistently in the postseason. But we're not there yet. We're in late August. And when you have a series like this in late August, it's hard not to dream about World Series aspirations. That's just reality. And we'll talk in the standings check-in portion of the episode about just where the Phillies sit in the hierarchy of baseball. But that starting pitching performance was insane. You may never see another series like it as far as the guys who threw on the mound first for the Titans. But it was not just them. Because if this was just a historic pitching series, well, I'd just be talking about the rotation. But that's not what we're going to do. The Phillies had, carried the 20 hits in yesterday's game. And it was the second time in this series that they reached the 20-hit threshold. That means that the Philadelphia Phillies, for the first time in the modern era, had 2 20-hit performances in the same series. So the pitching and the strikeout numbers, never been done before by the Phillies. The 20 hits in multiple games in a single series has not been done in the modern era by the Phillies. You have both of those happen in the same series. You know what that sounds like to me? We may have just watched the greatest single series in the history of the Philadelphia Phillies. Yeah, the numbers would tell you that's what we just watched. And that's a pretty darn good thing. But here's where the tempering of expectations comes in, right? They're not going to follow that up with a better series. They're not going to follow that up with an equal series, even though they're playing the Nationals for 3 over the weekend. And we'll preview that series on tomorrow's episode. It's just unrealistic to say, see, this is what the team should be doing every day. That's not how this sport works, all right? And that's not a realistic expectation in any sport. A guy goes out in basketball, and he makes the most threes in the history of his franchise. Do you go watch the next night and say, you better make that many again? Same with hockey, same with football, same with any sport. This was the peak of the mountain for the Philadelphia Phillies as far as what their performance could be. Now, I would counter that by saying they don't need to have 20 hits to win postseason games. They don't need to strike out 12 guys as a starting pitcher to win postseason games. But this just shows you, it was a reminder of like, hey, we've still got firepower. We've still got arms. We can still win games consistently without Zach Wheeler. It's going to be tougher. It's going to be less likely that we win it all, but it does not mean we are dead. And that's what the Phillies showed in this series. They showed that they are alive. Now, how alive? We're going to have to make that determination as the season continues. But the things that we saw in this series were incredible. And the guys up and down the lineup were all hitting. Yeah, it was great to see Kyle Schwarber go yard again in the later innings of yesterday's ball game. But the guys that I get really excited about, Bryson Stott had an awesome series, right? Trey Turner had 5 hits yesterday. That's great. But I love seeing Max Kepler starting to hit the ball hard consistently. He went yard yesterday, as we mentioned earlier. Like, that's the stuff that we know Kyle Schwarber is going to have to be Kyle Schwarber. Bryce Harper is going to have to be Bryce Harper. Trey Turner is going to have to be Trey Turner. You don't win if that doesn't happen. But what really puts you over the hump of, hey, you're a good regular season team, to, hey, you're a team in October with a chance to win it all, is when those guys at the bottom of the lineup begin to start putting it together, or at least give you the sense that they can carry you for a game or two. That's it, right? You don't need them to play the hero consistently, but sometimes you need them to step up. And in this series for the Phillies, everybody stepped up, including a guy that threw yesterday for the first time since May. No, Aaron Nola was not the only one with that long of a layoff. Jose Alvarado made his return to the mound for the Philadelphia Phillies yesterday, and he got a really interesting reaction. I want to talk about that and the psyche of the fan base, but also the usage of Alvarado and how big of a part he's going to be of this team's regular season. Because remember, he's not eligible for the postseason, but he pitched yesterday, and he looked solid. We'll talk about his return as we continue today's episode. All right, let's talk about our friends over at Monarch Money. They're the absolute best for helping you manage your finances. You got to check out Monarch Money because they've got all the tools that you need to take care of stuff. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that's why Monarch Money exists. It's an all-in-one personal financial tool that brings your entire financial life together, I should say, in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you, right? You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Who likes spreadsheets, right? Sorry if there's accountants out there or big Excel folks that listen to Locked On Phillies. The average person doesn't want to go through a spreadsheet. And that's why Monarch Money is so great. You just link all your accounts in and you immediately can spot a few things, a few places where you're costing yourself money, where you could be saving money. Monarch highlights those for you. You make the change, bang, boom, easy. Not only are you making your wealth work for you, you're figuring out where it's not. And Monarch makes it simple to also review your finances with your partner if you have one. We can see like both budget goals and spending activity in one place. So it makes it so much easier than having those weird conversations about money, right? Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. Go ahead and check out Monarch Money. So how about, I almost called him Jose Alvarado. I'm just combining people's names this week. Jose Alvarado. There it is. I haven't said his name for months because he hasn't been pitching, so you have to cut me some slack. He made his return to the mound yesterday. Now, we talked a little bit about what the reaction should be, or at least I would like it to be, from Phillies fans in an earlier episode. I believe it was was it yesterday's episode? Tuesday's episode? We talked about it when he was activated. And I said, to me, it should be indifference. This has become a business transaction. I'm no longer like Jose Alvarado's fan. Like, no, this is not, I love Jose Alvarado. He plays for my favorite team. No, this is Jose Alvarado. You messed up part of the World Series chances of this Philadelphia Phillies team. And for that, the rest of the year is do your job. I might clap for you if you get the job done. And that's it. Right? I'm not rooting you on the same way I root on these other guys who are going to be part of this postseason team. And he did that to himself, right? So I don't feel bad about having that take. I'm not trying to crush the guy. I'm just also not trying to give him all the love in the world because he is still actively hurting this team's postseason chances from what he did earlier in the year with his PED suspension. But yesterday at the ballpark, Jose Alvarado comes out in the 8th inning. And now you got to understand the spot. The Phillies had just got done running it up like crazy on the Seattle Mariners. They were on their way to a 3-game sweep in one of the most historic performances we've seen in a long time from a Phillies team in a 3-game series. So, needless to say, the vibes were high. It was also a long game. So maybe, just maybe, at Citizens Bank Park on a weekday business person special there, the BAC was high as well, the blood alcohol concentration. People had probably been drinking. People were having a good time. Everyone was enjoying themselves. The Phillies were winning. Everything's great. And then the announcement comes out, Jose Alvarado now pitching for your Philadelphia Phillies. And people stood up and cheered. A majority of fans at Citizens Bank Park stood up and cheered yesterday when Jose Alvarado was introduced as the pitcher for the 8th inning. Now, I'm not going to crush the fan base because of those factors that I just brought up there, right? I'm not going to say, oh, you should have booed him. You know, all that fun you just had watching the Phillies bat around and just absolutely demolish the Mariners pitching. Now turn that all off and boo this man right now in a spot where your team is up huge. I can't expect that from fans. I can't. That's an unfair reaction to ask for. And while I would have sat there and not given the standing ovation to Jose Alvarado, that would have been, here's the thing you got to remember too, if you're upset by the reaction of Phillies fans yesterday. And I'm not. I would not have done the same, but I'm not upset by it, right? I would have sat there. I might have given like a light clap, but it would have been mainly indifference, as I've said previously when talking about this situation. But that's premeditated. That's because I do 4 hours of sports talk every morning over at 97.5 The Fanatic. I do another 30 minutes every day, Monday through Friday, on this podcast talking to you folks. And I think about this stuff a lot. It is what I do for my profession. So when things happen at a ballpark, chances are, especially big things that are like storyline things like Jose Alvarado's return, I've already thought about it. I've already developed my opinion. I've already defended my opinion. I've already fleshed this all out. Fans in the building are just fans in the building, man. Some people might not have realized Alvarado was back. Some people might not know that he's suspended for the postseason. Some people just don't care as much about the nitty-gritty of sports, and they're just there to have a good time. So it's not, how dare Phillies fans stand and cheer for a guy who hurt your postseason chances? It's, understand that not every fan has the same level of scrutiny as some of us do for any players in any situations. Now, it still is intriguing to me because I find it hard to believe that every single one of those fans standing and cheering was okay with what the situation that Jose Alvarado put the Phillies in. Now, there's a narrative that's been tossed around a lot since we started talking about Alvarado coming back. Some people have said, hey, I'm going to cheer him because without him getting suspended, we would not have gotten Jhoan Duran. Now, I think there are fair parts of that statement, and I think there are unfair parts of that statement. I used an example on the radio. I will use it again. Let's say that you're a single man like me, and you're crossing the street, and you get hit by a bus, and you wake up in the hospital, and there's this beautiful nurse that's taking care of you, taking care of your injuries, and you guys end up falling in love and getting married, right? You might say, wow, it's a good thing I got hit by that bus because I met my wife as a result of it, right? What I would counter with is there are nice women everywhere, right? You could meet a partner without having to get run over by a SEPTA bus before that. So that's the thing. I think people are trying to justify a bad situation with a result that is kind of parallel to it. You could have potentially done the Durant thing even with Alvarado not suspended, just because the Phillies made a move that helped the team, and it may have been pushed forward by Alvarado getting suspended, does not now make his suspension a good thing, right? If the Phillies saw Jordan Romano have the year he had, who's to say they would not have gone out and gotten Duran anyway to throw in the 9th inning, because Jose Alvarado is not a true closer. He's gotten opportunities, but never in his time here in Philly has it been every 9th inning he gets the ball. So you could have still gone and done that. And could you imagine what the postseason bullpen looks like with Alvarado and Duran in the back end? Like, that would be amazing for them to have that opportunity to throw those guys. And he messed that up. He cost the team. So do you get Duran without Alvarado's suspension? I don't know. I actually lean more towards the Phillies would not have been as aggressive if they had had Jose Alvarado. They would have felt better about their bullpen. So I think it's less likely that they get Duran. Not a 0%. Not like it's guaranteed that if he's healthy, if he's not suspended, then they don't do it, or vice versa. But I do think that there's some correlation there. I just think it's unfair to laud Jose Alvarado for like he planned to get suspended to force Dave Dombrowski to make that move. That's not it. He messed up, or he made a mistake, and the Phillies ended up making a secondary move because of it. And that move ends up being a favorite of the fan base, which is the right thing. The Phillies handled it the right way. Alvarado, though, did not. So I will not laud him for that. The one other thing that I will say about Jose Alvarado, and this is more about the other guy that I was just talking about, right? It's kind of crazy how watching Alvarado come in and throw 100 is just, whatever at this point, right? Maybe you didn't have that reaction, but I did. I was watching the game and I see him pumping 100 or 99. I'm like, okay, whatever. And you know where that comes from? That comes from the guy throwing 103 that gets ninth inning save situations. Like, Duran is so good, he's made Jose Alvarado look just pedestrian. Guys that throw 100 should never look pedestrian, but that's how good Duran is. And Alvarado is going to be a great compliment to him in the regular season. But it was surprising to me how many people gave him that standing ovation, the loud applause that he got when he took the mound. I don't fault anybody. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. It's just intriguing to me. And I think that's a good explanation, the one that I just put together, of why people acted the way that they did. I understand people who are still mad at him. I'm still mad at him. I'm still upset that he hurt this team's World Series chances. But I think there's a lot of nuance to the reaction and to how the emotions of this situation affect fans, media, players, all of that, and how a bunch of different people are taking it a bunch of different ways. It's just a very interesting study in the Philadelphia fan base's psyche, and maybe the psyche of this team with Alvarado coming back. But whatever the case may be, they're going to use him, and they're going to use him a bunch because they only have him for the next month and change, and they should use him as often as they possibly can. And he looked good yesterday, so that's a good thing to see. Coming up next, we got to check in on the standings. We haven't done this in like 2 weeks because the Phillies haven't had an off day in like 2 weeks. So what is the standing around baseball of other contenders and the Phillies? We'll talk about it as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Let's talk about 5-Hour Energy first, though. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime-flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or maybe you just need a little extra push to power you through your day, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers that clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. And it really can accentuate a round of golf so that you know, hey, maybe you got a 8 a.m. tee time. You're tired from the night before. You're woken up immediately. Maybe you just had a long day of work and you want to get in 9 after your work day at the office is over. That's a great place for it as well. And golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors. And that's why the grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the Bev cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. Again, go ahead and check out 5hourenergy.com. Let's look at some standings, folks, because the Phillies have been on a roll lately. Well, I guess last week was kind of up and down, but the start to this week has been exceptional. And now that they've hit the off day, we got a little time to get our bearings. So let's start with overall in baseball. The Milwaukee Brewers at 79-48 have a 4-game lead on the next best team. They are way out in front. And that next best team is the Detroit Tigers, who are at 76-53. They started to play good baseball again after a bit of a late July, early August kind of a slide. They've settled in significantly over the past week or two. But so have the Phillies. The Phils at 74-53 have the third best record in all of baseball. They also have the 4th best run differential in all of baseball, and they're only 6-4 in their last 10. I mean, look at the team like the Yankees, who are 8-2 in their last 10. The Brewers also 6-4 in their last 10. And I've been saying they've been on the slide. The Tigers, who we were talking about, 8-2 in their last 10. So like these teams that are catching the Brewers, it seems like a lot of them are playing really good baseball as far as their last 10 games are concerned. The Phillies are kind of just plodding along. Win 2, lose 1. Win 2, lose 1. Win 2, lose 1. They mixed in a sweep here. They swept the Texas Rangers just a week or so ago. A couple weeks ago, I guess now at this point. But largely, the Phillies have just you win 2 to every 1 loss, and that's as good as you need to do, right? They will be fine. They will be right there. What's also important is they have right now a 2-game lead over the Dodgers in the look at the National League, right? They also have a 1-game lead over the Cubs, but the Cubs are in the same division as the Brewers. So the Cubs cannot possibly unseat the Phillies for the 2 seed unless they take over the division title in the NL Central. So right now, if the postseason started today, Milwaukee would be the 1 seed in the National League. The Phillies would be the 2 seed. And that's huge for a couple of reasons. One, it would get you that first round bye, which with the wear and tear on this team from postseason appearances and guys being in and out, an older team, we know the Philadelphia Phillies are, they could use that extra time off. But 2, it helps set up their rotation, which we talked about. The 2 seed is very important. Now, I got asked today by my guy, John Kincaid, who's on Kincaid and Saltunis. Obviously, his name's on the show along with Andrew Saltunis. So those are the 2 guys I work with every morning. And he asked me, when do you start to look at the Brewers chasing them down for the 1 seed? And I said, I don't. I'm not worried about 1 seed, 2 seed. I don't care. Because this team, this Phillies team, they can go on the road and win. I'm not too worried about that. I'm more worried about being one of the top 2 seeds so you can get that first round bye. That is paramount. And as we get closer to flipping the calendar to September, we're going to have to start to focus on that more. Right now, you're in a good spot. But the Dodgers are 2 back on you. The Padres are 1 back of the Dodgers. I mean, you're going to be trailing probably whoever wins the Central. If the Cubs catch the Brewers or if the Brewers keep on this pace, it'll be hard for the Phillies to track them down. But that is something that is really, really important, and the Phillies are doing well as far as that's concerned. Let's just look at run differential in the league. 99 for the Phillies. They're plus 99. They are 3rd in the National League in run differential. They are 5th in runs scored, and runs against, they are 3rd. So clearly pitching still carrying them, even starting pitching with Zach Wheeler out. We'll see if that comes back down to earth. But right now, they're doing a pretty darn good job. And it looks even better when we look at the National League East. The Phillies in the East have a 6.5 game lead over the struggling New York Mets. I don't know what's going on up there in New York, but the Mets have just fallen from grace big time. And at 67-59, they're just 8 games over 500. The Phillies are 21 games over 500. That just shows you how special this team is playing baseball. I mean, if the Phillies continue to just win series from here on out, they will lock up the division easily. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't also slide. We've seen this team go through a rough stretch. But if they get this up to 8, 9, 10 games, you might start to hear me talk about this division being over. It is not yet. The Phillies will play the Mets on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of this coming week, and that will be up at Citi Field. That's a big chance for you to kind of slam the door on this thing, or at least shut the door a little bit. Like, you know how back when you were a kid growing up and your parents were like, don't shut your bedroom door, but you still would like close it just close enough. There'd be a little crack in it. That would be where the Phillies can get things to. And we still got to focus on the Nationals first. But, I mean, that's what happens when you win 4 straight. You sweep a series against the Mariners. You handle business on a road trip where you did okay, but you also had a sweep at the start of it against the Rangers. You can win series or you can sweep series, and that gives you a little bit more room for error. But the Phillies have been doing some great stuff. They're playing great baseball. Everything feels amazing right now. I'll just remind you one more time. temper the expectations. They're not always going to play like they did over these 3 games against the Mariners. They really haven't had a series that good in their history of their franchise. So how do you find a consistent way to maybe not score 11 runs, but go get 5 or 6 any given day? That's the goal for the next month and change for the Phillies before Red October hits us. But it's a fun time to be checking out the Phillies. So thank you so much for checking out Locked On Phillies. Once again, we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that really helps us out. Oh, and by the way, check out Locked On Phillies postcast with Mark Farzetta. Immediate reaction to the games as they end. It's right here on the same YouTube channel, right here on the same podcast feed. So all you have to do is follow Locked On Phillies and you get it. But just make sure you listen to Mark Farzetta because he does a great job with the immediate reaction stuff here, working in tandem with myself. And I will talk to you tomorrow on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.